Mabuhay, Kamustika, welcome, how are you? This is Bob from Love Beyond the Sea. 10 things easier than expected after marrying a Filipina. There are things one might worry about marrying a woman from a country thousands of miles away. That may also feature a large age gap. There are some major differences with culture, possibly generation gap, lifestyles, etc. That should get some notoriety, but today I want to chat with you about the other side of the coin. In our experience, what has been easier than expected. Please subscribe to Love Beyond the Sea, where I want to educate men about a relationship with a woman from the Philippines, a Filipina, so they might consider marrying a woman from there. Comments, they're always welcome. Get notifications for upcoming videos. Let me know what you think about the video in the comments. I would have to say our marriage has been easier than expected, but I had been alone for so long I'm not sure I really even knew what my expectations were. In addition to the differences that I mentioned earlier, I proposed quickly, like day 18, and married her just over a month later. So there hadn't been as much get to know you time as you would normally have, less than 8 weeks, but that's what we decided to do. And yes, I've had plenty of people tell me that that was a mistake and it's going to end in disaster, but we've been married for, I think, 6 years and 5 months now. Hard to believe that. I have to admit, I was very excited to go to the Philippines to meet her and then get married on that very first trip. I didn't even know what to expect of the Philippines, as I knew nothing about it, really. I just knew the women were attractive, and I liked that. When she told me where she was from, I had to read a few articles about Davao City, see what it was like. Found out it was a safe city, and who their mayor was, and he would later become president. I was mainly focused on communicating with her in those days, and it was a very exciting time. I think we probably talked on camera about 4 hours a day. To be honest with you, I didn't go into this relationship with any fear at all. Maybe that was a blessing in disguise, because I get the impression some guys are terrified that they can never trust a Filipina and are sure to get taken advantage of. Let me add this briefly. I was straight up in my online dating profile with Christian Filipina that I was looking for someone to marry, and I think I came across that way in our conversations. Why beat around the bush? I was aware that scams occurred, but really wasn't aware how elaborate they could be. But my wife worked very hard in our wedding preparations, even until the day before the wedding, to get things just right. And she wasn't asking me for money. She had me meet as many of her principal sponsors as possible for the wedding. Those are very important people in her life, so that was nice. And these are not things I would expect from someone who is going to marry me only to dump me when in America. I trusted that God would be leading me, or would not be leading me, into a trap after all the years I had spent struggling and praying for a wife. And after being married since May of 2015, I can look back and consider what has been easier. That might have been expected, getting married that soon. And it seems like it's about everything, really. But I'll list 10 things. 1, getting along with her family. I have been to the Philippines 4 times now, I think, and met her family every time. They might be tempted to think I am avoiding them those times when I choose to rest in the air-conditioned condo, but the heat bothers me, and it's so surreal to be that far away from home. I depend so much on my wife when we're there, and what would I do if something happened to her? Now that we built a house there, check out the Just Us playlist for a couple videos about that. We stayed there with some family the most recent trip. Now, what I didn't realize was in the Philippines, there's different times of year when the weather's not so boiling hot, and that did help out sometimes. I find her family very nice people who have been very kind to me. The more times I am there, it seems like the more family meets us at the airport. and to take us back to the airport to say goodbye. The more times I am there, the more tears there are when my wife and I leave. We have watched television together, watched a movie on DVD, watched the news, seen some sports together, and I imagine karaoke is in our future there with her family. Probably the best indicator of how well I believe we get along is that we intend on having some of her family live with us if we retire in the Philippines someday. Some are shy with their English, but everyone has been so good to me, and I really want to be embraced by them. Another thing, easier than I might have thought, would be my wife getting along with my family. That's a small family. Normally, you wouldn't want you and your wife to live with one of your parents, but that has gone relatively well for us. My mother accepts Isa as her daughter-in-law, and they do their best to be harmonious. It was Isa's idea for her to live with us, and it's gone well. Another one, how well my wife has adapted to America has been a pleasant surprise. Of course, there will be concerns about this because, my wife has joined a different culture and is working a full-time job with overtime, and she's doing very well. Our church style is different than what she is used to. Some people have been rude to her. The weather is a major change. Living with me, of course, is a big adjustment. Amazingly, she has adapted easier than I thought, and I am very proud of her. These days, she is taking classes in biotechnology and learning new writing skills in addition to continuing to work full-time and moving up the ladder. Another thing on my list here, things been easier, would be loving her. When you've been sitting on the bench as long as I had, 30 years, if you want to know, but don't tell anybody, you never know just how you will respond when you are finally married. I didn't have much time at all to adjust, since we got married in less than 8 weeks. I was mentally prepared to give her my best, and have found that the more I do for her, the more natural it feels and the more satisfying it is. Love still requires effort. You take the good days with the bad days and try to learn from the bad days. To me, she was the prize when I married her. I only have to understand that, I need to be good to her, protect her, and care for this amazing little woman. And it's been very worthwhile. Another thing would be our communication. My wife's English is good, and she frequently asks me for the correct way to say things. This has not been an issue. I see some, videos or, articles about people that get married and they don't even speak the same language, and I really don't understand at all. This has not been an issue for us. I know there are times people at work have even commented on how well she speaks English for, not being here very long. Her maturity, this is one I should list. Her maturity, getting along with my wife has not been difficult. I mean, there's always challenges with two people being together, but we're talking different culture, age gap, etc. She was 26 when we married, but had gone to college in the Philippines, was working to support her family, loves family, is an excellent wife, and she is my best friend. If I haven't put that video out, I'm going to make one sooner or later. She is respected at her place of employment. You can't really tell how mature she is until, you get her in certain situations, like being married, and she has done well. Of course, I expected the normal issues, couples tangle over and personal differences, but overall we're fine. Finding friends. That was a concern, but it's been easier than I thought. I didn't know any Filipinas here when we got married, but I prayed for her to find Filipina and non-Filipina friends since I married her, and she has had a handful of them. She even worked with one on her shift at work and was friends with another one also at work. Employers, you should know this. Filipinas are hard and dedicated workers. Here's one that I have to list. It's been a little bit easier or better than I thought, and that would be my behavior. I had gone again 30 years without a relationship. It's a long time. So naturally, there were some reservations about how I would respond to being married, especially to someone a lot different than I was. I need the grace of God, like all of us do in a relationship. It requires sacrifice and unselfishness. Yes, being married has exposed some weaknesses to no one's surprise. That's what happens. But getting along with my wife in marriage has gone well. I have bought into the concept of servant leadership of my wife. People's reaction. Everybody wants to know, how are people going to react to you? Sometimes you hear some horror stories. Well, besides some knuckleheads on YouTube who have not met us in person, people's reaction to her and to us together has been good. It's been positive. I've made sure to introduce my wife to family and friends, co-workers, doctors, our financial advisor, helped her find this female doctor for herself. None of them treat us differently than anyone else. They all seem impressed with my wife. I really don't think I am missing something here. What can they say? We may be an anomaly here in the United States, but no one can argue that we are like oil and water and just don't mix. How about my wife's abilities? She is bright, hardworking, very creative, organized, easygoing, very good with computers and related gadgets, electronic things, as well as a committed wife. She learned how to drive, and she drives really well. What more could I ask for? I only knew so much since we got married so fast, but there have not been any negative surprises. Now, here's one surprise here, I guess I can think of, is I do want to mention one thing that did surprise me, but it wasn't about our relationship per se, but it's likely about our marriage, and that is jealousy. I've talked about this before, but I thought it would fit here. I guess I figured people I knew would be happy, as I said, under people's reaction, but it is the people that I spent the most time with that seem to have given me the cold shoulder. Co-workers, for example, a longtime friend. Normally, you'd assume that people would be happy for you, that you finally found someone after, not giving up after a remarkable, drought of 30 years. That's a Guinness World Book of Records, I think, between relationships. Must have been because she is 27 years younger, which you almost never see in America. Maybe they are jealous that she is exotic from a different country. I don't know what it is when people go silent, but it makes me think they're jealous. Would they prefer I just stay alone, frustrated and lonely? You shouldn't be concerned about what others think. Marrying someone from another country is as common as ever right now, I would think, and perfectly reasonable, provided you make a good choice. I try my best to be a good husband, and much of Love Beyond the Sea is about that. You don't want to grow old and alone. I must thank God for having our relationship go relatively smoothly. There are always going to be contentions and arguments, even with a Filipina. Things have to get patched up quickly, though, when they do. So many men have said that their Filipina wife is the best wife they could have. Filipinas seem to be adaptable. They want to get married. That's a good thing. They know how to take care of a man and to make a nice home for him. Life has been good with my love beyond the sea. Now let me just recap these here one time for you more. Getting along with her family, things have gone easier than I thought. My wife getting along with my family here in America, how well she's adapted to America, loving her, our communication, her maturity, finding friends, my behavior, people's reactions, and my wife's abilities. So I hope that helps you, and leave comments if you can relate to some of these things, and wait for another video here on Love Beyond the Sea.